October 12, 1972. Robert Harrison, a 45-year-old insurance executive from suburban Denver, Colorado, stood in his meticulously organized home office, staring at the crumpled letter that had arrived 3 days earlier, the first communication he'd received from his 19-year-old daughter Jennifer in over 8 months. The letter, written on handmade paper and decorated with peace symbols and flower drawings, explained that she was living at something called Rainbow Valley Commune in Northern California, that she was finding herself through love and spiritual awakening, and that she never wanted to see him again because he represented everything wrong with capitalist society. Robert had built his entire identity around being a responsible provider, a pillar of his community, and a devoted father who had sacrificed everything to give his daughter the best possible life. The idea that Jennifer had rejected all of his values to join what he could only imagine was a group of drug-addled hippie dropouts filled him with a combination of rage, heartbreak, and desperate determination to bring his little girl home before it was too late. Robert's world was one of careful order and conservative values. He woke every morning at 6:30 a.m., put on one of his 12 identical gray suits, read the Wall Street Journal while eating breakfast prepared by his housekeeper, and arrived at his office by 8:00 a.m. sharp to manage insurance policies for middle-class families who trusted him to protect their financial security. His late wife Margaret had died of cancer when Jennifer was 15, leaving him to raise their daughter alone while maintaining his demanding career and his position as a deacon at First Presbyterian Church. Robert had approached single parenthood with the same methodical efficiency he brought to everything else in his life, hiring the best tutors, enrolling Jennifer in the finest private school, planning her path to college and eventual marriage to someone from their social circle. He had never understood why his careful planning and generous provision hadn't been enough to keep his daughter happy and grateful. The rebellion had started small during Jennifer's senior year of high school: longer skirts that Robert considered inappropriate, music he found incomprehensible, friends whose appearance and attitudes alarmed him. But Jennifer had still maintained good grades and college plans, so Robert had attributed her changes to normal teenage phase that would pass once she matured. When she left for Stanford University in the fall of 1971, he had been proud and confident that the prestigious institution would reinforce the values he had tried to instill and prepare her for a successful, conventional life. The phone calls home had become increasingly infrequent and strange, filled with talk about consciousness expansion, social justice, and the need to reject materialistic society. By Christmas break, Jennifer was talking about dropping out of college to pursue authentic living, a concept that made no sense to Robert's practical mind. The final confrontation had occurred during spring break of Jennifer's freshman year, when she had arrived home with hair down to her waist, flowing peasant dresses, and a boyfriend named Moon, who claimed to be a spiritual teacher and refused to shake Robert's hand because he didn't believe in the patriarchal ritual of dominance assertion. Jennifer had announced that she was leaving Stanford to join Moon's spiritual community, where she would learn to live in harmony with the earth and explore the infinite possibilities of human consciousness. Robert had responded with threats, ultimatums, and finally the cutting off of all financial support, believing that the harsh reality of life without his money would quickly bring his daughter to her senses. Instead, Jennifer had simply disappeared one night, leaving behind only a note saying she was going to California to find her true self and would never return to the soul-killing prison of conventional society. The 8 months of silence that followed had been the most difficult period of Robert's life. He had hired private investigators, contacted police departments across California, and even reached out to the FBI, convinced that his daughter had been kidnapped or brainwashed by some kind of cult. His work performance had suffered as he spent hours each day calling colleges, communes, and counterculture organizations, desperately seeking any information about Jennifer's whereabouts. His friends at the country club had stopped asking about her after the initial expressions of sympathy, and Robert had begun to feel like a pariah in his own social circle, the father who had somehow failed so spectacularly that his own daughter had chosen to live with unwashed hippies rather than accept the comfortable life he had provided. The letter that had finally arrived was both a relief and a fresh source of agony. At least Jennifer was alive and apparently unharmed, but her words revealed a young woman who had become completely alien to everything Robert understood about proper living. She wrote about communal child-rearing, group meditation sessions, organic farming, and free love relationships that made Robert's stomach turn with a combination of disgust and parental terror. The daughter he had raised to be a refined, educated lady had apparently transformed into someone who rejected every aspect of civilized society. But beneath his anger and disappointment, Robert felt a desperate love that made him willing to do anything, even venture into the alien world of hippie communes, to bring Jennifer home where she belonged. The decision to travel to California represented the most impulsive action Robert had taken in his adult life. Against the advice of his lawyer, his pastor, and his business partner, he arranged for extended leave from his job, bought a plane ticket to San Francisco, and began planning what he thought of as a rescue mission. He had no clear strategy beyond locating Rainbow Valley Commune, confronting whoever was responsible for corrupting his daughter, and convincing Jennifer to return home with him. Robert's understanding of the counterculture movement came entirely from television news reports and magazine articles that portrayed hippies as dangerous drug addicts who preyed on innocent young people from good families. He expected to find his daughter held captive by manipulative cult leaders who had exploited her idealism and naivety for their own twisted purposes. Before you continue this incredible journey of transformation and unexpected love with us, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories that challenge our assumptions and change our hearts forever. The flight to San Francisco was Robert's first time traveling alone since Margaret's death, and the experience felt disorienting and lonely. As the plane descended toward the airport, Robert could see the sprawling city that had become synonymous with the hippie movement, the place where his daughter had chosen to reject everything he had taught her about proper living. The other passengers included several young people whose long hair, colorful clothing, and relaxed demeanor marked them as part of the counterculture that Robert blamed for destroying his family. He found himself studying their faces, wondering if any of them might know Jennifer, might have information about the commune where she was living, might be able to help him understand what had gone so wrong with his carefully planned life. Renting a car at the San Francisco airport, Robert began the drive north toward Mendocino County, where his private investigator had finally located Rainbow Valley Commune after months of searching. The landscape gradually changed from urban sprawl to rolling hills covered with vineyards and redwood forests, a natural beauty that Robert might have appreciated under different circumstances. As he drove, he rehearsed the speech he planned to give Jennifer about responsibility, education, and the importance of thinking about her future rather than indulging in temporary rebellion. He also prepared arguments for the commune leaders, whom he planned to threaten with legal action if they continued to harbor his underage daughter. Robert had no idea that Jennifer had turned 20 during her time at the commune, or that the legal authority he planned to invoke had expired months earlier. The first sight of Rainbow Valley Commune challenged Robert's preconceptions about hippie communities. Instead of the squalid camp of drug-addled dropouts he had expected, he found a well-organized settlement of wooden buildings nestled in a valley surrounded by organic gardens, fruit orchards, and pastures where goats and chickens roamed freely. Solar panels and windmills provided renewable energy, workshops produced furniture and crafts that were obviously made with skill and care, and the entire property showed signs of thoughtful planning and hard work. As Robert parked his rental car near the main gate, he was met by a group of residents whose appearance was undeniably unconventional, but whose demeanor was friendly and welcoming rather than hostile or suspicious. The woman who greeted him introduced herself as River, one of the commune's founding members and its unofficial spokesperson for dealing with the outside world. River appeared to be in her late 30s, with graying hair braided with wildflowers and wearing a flowing dress made from hand-woven fabric. Despite her unconventional appearance, she spoke with intelligence and compassion that reminded Robert uncomfortably of his late wife's best qualities. "You must be Jennifer's father," River said with a warm smile. "She's told us so much about you. She's been hoping you might come visit, though she wasn't sure you'd be willing to venture into our little corner of paradise." The kindness in River's voice and the obvious affection with which she spoke about Jennifer threw Robert off balance, making it difficult for him to maintain the righteous anger that had sustained him during the journey west. River invited Robert to stay for dinner and meet the community before seeing Jennifer, explaining that the commune had a policy of introducing newcomers gradually to avoid overwhelming either the visitors or the residents. "Your daughter has been through quite a transformation since she arrived," River explained as she led him toward the main dining hall. "She's found her voice, her strength, her connection to the earth and to herself. She's become one of our most valuable community members, contributing her intelligence and energy to our collective well-being." Robert wanted to argue that Jennifer belonged in college, not playing house with a group of adult children who had refused to accept their responsibilities to society. But something about River's calm confidence and obvious genuine care for his daughter made him reluctant to immediately launch into the confrontation he had planned. The communal dinner that evening was unlike any meal Robert had experienced in his carefully ordered life. More than 60 people of all ages gathered in a large wooden hall lit by oil lamps and candles, sharing food that had been grown on the commune's land and prepared collectively by rotating teams of residents. Children ran freely between the tables, while adults engaged in animated conversations about philosophy, politics, art, and the day's work activities. The atmosphere was simultaneously chaotic and harmonious, reflecting a kind of organized community life that Robert had never imagined possible. As he sat between River and an elderly man who introduced himself as Elder Tom, a former college professor who had joined the commune after retiring from academia, Robert found himself reluctantly impressed by the obvious intelligence and sincere commitment of the people around him. The conversation at Robert's table challenged every assumption he had formed about commune life. Elder Tom spoke eloquently about sustainable agriculture and renewable energy systems, demonstrating a level of scientific knowledge that rivaled anything Robert had encountered in his business world. A young mother named Dawn discussed the commune's educational philosophy, explaining how children learned through direct experience with nature and meaningful work rather than rote memorization in sterile classrooms. A bearded artist called Rainbow Bear described the community's economic model, which combined subsistence farming with cooperative businesses that generated enough income to maintain financial independence while avoiding exploitation of workers or environmental destruction. "We're not dropping out of society," Elder Tom explained to Robert. "We're creating a better society, one that values human well-being and environmental health over profit and competition." When Jennifer finally appeared in the dining hall, Robert barely recognized his daughter. The carefully groomed young woman who had left for Stanford wearing designer clothes and conservative hairstyles had been transformed into someone who radiated health, confidence, and inner peace. Her hair hung in a long braid decorated with wildflowers. Her face glowed with the kind of vitality that comes from meaningful work and genuine happiness, and her flowing dress was obviously handmade but beautiful in its simplicity. But the most dramatic change was in Jennifer's demeanor. Where she had once been anxious and eager to please, constantly seeking Robert's approval, she now moved with the self-assured grace of someone completely comfortable in her own skin. "Hello, Daddy," she said, her voice warm but cautious as she approached his table. "I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure you would." The reunion between father and daughter was complicated by months of hurt feelings and fundamental disagreements about life choices. Jennifer was obviously happy to see Robert, but also defensive about the lifestyle she had chosen, while Robert struggled to reconcile his love for his daughter with his disapproval of everything the commune represented. "You look healthy," he admitted, unable to deny the obvious vitality and contentment that Jennifer radiated. "But honey, what are you doing here? You have a scholarship to Stanford, a future, opportunities that most young people would kill for. Why are you throwing all of that away to play house with these people?" Jennifer's eyes flashed with the same stubborn determination that had characterized her since childhood. "I'm not throwing anything away, Daddy. I'm choosing something better. I'm learning to live authentically, to contribute to a community that actually cares about making the world better rather than just accumulating wealth and status." The argument that followed was painful for both father and daughter, played out in front of commune members who listened with compassion but refused to take sides in the family conflict. Robert expressed his fears about Jennifer's future, his concerns about her safety, and his fundamental belief that she was wasting her potential by rejecting the opportunities he had worked so hard to provide. Jennifer responded with passionate explanations of why she found conventional society morally bankrupt, spiritually empty, and environmentally destructive. "You want me to spend my life selling insurance policies to people who are trapped in the same meaningless cycle that's made you so unhappy," she said, her voice rising with emotion. "But I found something here that actually matters. Work that heals the earth, relationships based on love rather than obligation, a way of living that doesn't require exploiting other people or destroying the environment." River intervened before the argument could escalate further, suggesting that Robert might benefit from staying at the commune for a few days to observe their lifestyle before making final judgments about its value. "Your daughter has found something precious here," she told Robert gently. "But you can't understand what that is until you experience our way of life for yourself. We have a guest cabin, where you're welcome to stay as long as you need. Maybe if you spend some time with us, you'll begin to see what Jennifer sees in our community." The invitation was offered with such genuine kindness that Robert found himself accepting, despite his initial intention to leave immediately with Jennifer, whether she wanted to come or not. Something about River's calm confidence and obvious wisdom made him curious about what the commune might teach him about his daughter's transformation. The guest cabin, where Robert spent his first night at Rainbow Valley, was simple but comfortable, furnished with handmade wooden furniture and lit by oil lamps that created a warm, peaceful atmosphere he had never experienced in his electrically lit suburban home. As he lay in the unfamiliar bed listening to the sounds of owls and wind in the trees, Robert found himself thinking about Margaret and how she might have reacted to Jennifer's choices. His late wife had always been more intuitive and emotionally open than Robert, more willing to trust in possibilities that couldn't be quantified or controlled. She might have understood this place, Robert thought as he drifted off to sleep. She might have seen something here that I'm missing. The next morning brought Robert's introduction to the commune's daily rhythm, beginning with optional meditation sessions at sunrise that he initially dismissed as hippie nonsense, but gradually found unexpectedly peaceful. River served as his unofficial guide, explaining the various work projects and community practices that structured commune life. Robert was surprised to discover that the residents worked harder than most people in conventional jobs, but with a sense of purpose and joy that was completely foreign to his business world experience. "Work here isn't something we do to earn money to buy happiness," River explained, as they watched a group of residents harvesting vegetables for the community kitchen. "Work is how we express our love for each other and for the earth. It's how we create the world we want to live in." As the days passed, Robert found himself drawn into conversations with commune members that challenged his fundamental assumptions about success, happiness, and the meaning of a well-lived life. Elder Tom shared stories about his transition from academic life to communal living, explaining how he had found more intellectual stimulation and personal fulfillment at Rainbow Valley than he had ever experienced in the university system. Dawn described how communal child-rearing had allowed her to pursue her artistic interests while ensuring that her daughter received loving attention from multiple parent figures. A former businessman named Peace explained how he had traded his six-figure corporate salary for meaningful work that contributed to environmental healing and social justice. The turning point in Robert's understanding came during a community meeting where residents gathered to make collective decisions about upcoming projects and resolve conflicts through consensus rather than hierarchical authority. Robert watched in amazement as 60 people with diverse backgrounds and strong opinions managed to reach agreement on complex issues through patient discussion, active listening, and genuine respect for different perspectives. The process was time-consuming and sometimes frustrating, but it resulted in decisions that everyone could support and commitments that were honored because they had been freely chosen rather than imposed by external authority. "This is real democracy," River whispered to Robert as the meeting concluded with everyone satisfied by the outcomes. "This is what happens when people actually listen to each other and work together toward common goals." But the most profound impact on Robert came from observing his daughter's role in the community and the obvious respect and affection she commanded from people of all ages. Jennifer had become the commune's coordinator for their educational outreach programs, developing curriculum that taught sustainable living practices to visiting school groups and organizing workshops for other intentional communities across the region. Her intelligence, organizational skills, and natural leadership abilities were being utilized in ways that made a real difference in the world, and she was obviously thriving in an environment that valued her contributions rather than simply expecting her to conform to predetermined roles. "She's not wasting her potential here," Robert realized with surprise. "She's actually using more of her abilities than she ever could in the conventional world I wanted her to enter." The woman who was transforming Robert's understanding of life and love was River herself, whose combination of practical wisdom, spiritual depth, and compassionate intelligence gradually revealed itself as more compelling than anything he had experienced since Margaret's death. River had joined Rainbow Valley after ending a marriage to a successful lawyer who had valued her primarily as an ornament to his career, rather than as a complete human being with her own dreams and capabilities. She had discovered at the commune the opportunity to develop her natural gifts as a counselor and community organizer while living according to principles that honored both individual growth and collective well-being. "I was dying in my old life," she confided to Robert as they walked through the commune's gardens one evening. "I was successful by society's standards, but I was spiritually and emotionally starving. Here, I found nourishment for parts of myself I didn't even know existed." The growing attraction between Robert and River was complicated by their vastly different backgrounds and worldviews, but also deepened by their shared experience of loss and their mutual concern for Jennifer's well-being. River challenged Robert's assumptions about success and happiness, while respecting his genuine love for his daughter and his sincere desire to do what was best for her. Robert found himself opening up to River about his loneliness since Margaret's death, his fears about aging alone, and his growing recognition that the material success he had pursued his entire life had failed to provide the meaning and connection he actually craved. "You're not too old to start over," River told him one evening as they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "You're not too set in your ways to learn new possibilities. Age can be a gift that allows us to choose wisdom over convention, authenticity over appearance." The transformation in Robert's perspective became undeniable during his second week at Rainbow Valley, when he found himself genuinely enjoying the physical work of harvesting apples in the commune's orchards. For a man who had spent decades behind a desk managing other people's financial anxieties, the simple satisfaction of filling baskets with fruit that would nourish his temporary community felt revolutionary. His expensive business suits had been replaced with work clothes borrowed from other residents. His carefully maintained appearance had given way to sun-darkened skin and calloused hands, and his rigid daily schedule had been replaced by a rhythm that followed natural cycles rather than corporate demands. "I haven't felt this alive in years," he admitted to River as they worked side by side among the apple trees. "I had forgotten that work could be something other than obligation and stress." The relationship between Robert and Jennifer began to heal as both father and daughter gained new understanding of each other's perspectives. Jennifer saw that her father's controlling behavior had come from love and fear rather than mere desire for dominance, while Robert began to recognize that his daughter's rejection of conventional success represented courage rather than irresponsibility. Their conversations shifted from arguments about life choices to genuine exploration of values, dreams, and the meaning of happiness. "I wanted to give you security," Robert explained during one of their evening walks. "I wanted to protect you from the struggles and uncertainties I had experienced, but I think I may have been protecting you from life itself." Jennifer's response revealed the wisdom she had gained through her commune experience. "Security isn't something you can give another person, Daddy. It's something you find inside yourself by learning to trust in your own strength and the support of people who truly love you." The romantic relationship that developed between Robert and River challenged both of their assumptions about love, compatibility, and the possibility of finding happiness after loss. Despite their age difference and vastly different life experiences, they discovered a deep intellectual and emotional connection that surprised them both with its intensity. River's influence helped Robert recognize that his grief over Margaret's death had become a prison that prevented him from fully engaging with life, while Robert's stability and maturity provided River with a sense of security she had never found with the younger, less committed men she had known at the commune. "Love isn't about finding someone who fits into your existing life," River told Robert as their relationship deepened. "It's about creating a new life together that honors both of your truths." The decision to stay at Rainbow Valley permanently was not one that Robert made lightly or quickly. It required him to examine every assumption he had formed about success, responsibility, and the meaning of a well-lived life. His business partner in Denver was initially horrified by Robert's decision to sell his share of the insurance agency and donate the proceeds to environmental organizations, viewing it as evidence of mental breakdown or hippie brainwashing. His friends at the country club were equally shocked by his transformation from conservative businessman to commune member, unable to understand how someone would voluntarily abandon financial security for what they saw as an irresponsible fantasy. But Robert found that the disapproval of his former social circle bothered him less than he had expected, perhaps because his new community provided the kind of genuine acceptance and support he had never found in the conventional world. The practical challenges of adapting to commune life were significant for a man in his mid-40s who had spent his entire adult life in suburban comfort. Robert had to learn sustainable farming techniques, renewable energy systems, consensus decision-making processes, and communal living skills that were completely foreign to his individual-focused background. But he also discovered capabilities he had never known he possessed, artistic talents that emerged through woodworking projects, leadership abilities that developed through coordinating community activities, and emotional intelligence that grew through the commune's emphasis on honest communication and mutual support. "I'm becoming the person I might have been if I hadn't been so afraid of taking risks," he wrote in a letter to his former business partner. "I'm discovering parts of myself that were buried under years of trying to be who I thought I should be." The wedding ceremony that united Robert and River 6 months after his arrival at Rainbow Valley was unlike anything either of them had experienced in their previous marriages. Instead of a formal church service focused on legal obligations and social expectations, their commitment ceremony was a celebration of love, growth, and shared dedication to the commune's principles of environmental stewardship and human liberation. Jennifer served as one of the witnesses, tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched her father pledge his love to a woman who had become like a mother to her, and his commitment to a way of life that honored both individual authenticity and collective well-being. "I never thought I'd see you this happy again," Jennifer whispered to her father after the ceremony. "River has brought out the best parts of who you are." The integration of Robert into commune life brought new energy and capabilities to Rainbow Valley's various projects and enterprises. His business experience proved valuable in developing more efficient marketing strategies for the commune's crafts and agricultural products, while his financial knowledge helped establish better systems for managing the community's resources and planning for long-term sustainability. But Robert's most important contribution was his role as a bridge between the commune and the conventional world, using his credibility as a former businessman to advocate for environmental protection and social justice causes that might have been dismissed if promoted only by long-haired hippies. "People listen to me because I speak their language," Robert explained to a group of environmental activists who were planning a campaign against corporate pollution. "They trust me because I've lived in their world and chose to leave it for something better." The commune itself evolved significantly during Robert's first years there, growing from a small, intentional community into a model for sustainable living that attracted visitors from around the world. Robert's organizational skills and River's wisdom combined to help Rainbow Valley develop more structured programs for teaching ecological farming, renewable energy, conflict resolution, and community building to people who wanted to create similar communities in their own regions. The success of these educational programs brought both recognition and resources that allowed the commune to expand its environmental and social justice work while maintaining the intimate, family-like atmosphere that had originally attracted its residents. Robert's relationship with his former life in Denver became increasingly distant as he discovered the fulfillment that came from meaningful work, authentic relationships, and alignment between his values and his daily actions. His old friends gradually stopped calling, unable to understand his transformation and unwilling to examine their own assumptions about success and happiness. But Robert found that he didn't miss the superficial social connections and competitive pressures that had characterized his previous existence. The genuine friendships he formed at Rainbow Valley, based on shared values and mutual support rather than professional networking and social status, provided more satisfaction than anything he had experienced in the conventional world. The years that followed brought both challenges and rewards as Robert and River built a life together that honored both of their needs for independence and their desire for deep partnership. They traveled together to other communes and intentional communities, sharing their knowledge and learning from different approaches to sustainable living and social organization. They collaborated on writing articles and books about their experiences, helping to document the commune movement and inspire others to consider alternative ways of organizing society. River's influence continued to help Robert develop his emotional intelligence and spiritual awareness, while Robert's practical skills and life experience provided stability and structure that enhanced River's natural gifts as a teacher and counselor. By 1975, 3 years after his arrival at Rainbow Valley, Robert had become one of the commune's most respected elders and a prominent voice in the broader movement for social and environmental transformation. His journey from conservative businessman to hippie commune member had been documented in several magazines and books, inspiring other middle-aged Americans to question their assumptions about success and consider the possibility of dramatic life changes. But for Robert himself, the The most important measure of his transformation was not public recognition, but private satisfaction. The daily joy of waking up beside a woman he loved deeply, in a community that valued his contributions, doing work that made a positive difference in the world. The conservative father who had traveled to California to rescue his daughter from what he thought was a dangerous cult had instead discovered that she had found something he didn't even know he was looking for, a way of living that honored both individual authenticity and collective responsibility, that combined practical effectiveness with spiritual depth, that offered genuine security through community support rather than individual accumulation. Jennifer's apparent rebellion had actually been a form of wisdom, a recognition that the conventional path to happiness was fundamentally flawed and that real fulfillment required the courage to create new possibilities rather than simply accepting inherited limitations. In learning to see his daughter's choices through new eyes, Robert had gained the vision to transform his own life, proving that love, whether parental, romantic, or communal, truly could conquer the fear and prejudice that kept people trapped in unsatisfying existence. The flower power movement had given him not just a new way of living, but a new understanding of what it meant to be truly alive.